Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan. I have my co host with me.
And good evening, everybody. Dr. J.R. Thicklin here. And once again, we're still on this happy new year because it's still the new year. And we're excited about everything that this new year is bringing. And we are determined that the new year is going to be more than just the turning of a calendar, that it's going to be the reality of manifestations of things in our life that not only that we hope for, that we pray for, but those things that most importantly, that we pursue.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And we have to avoid distractions. January is the time that we make New Year's resolutions. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we step up to the plate like we getting ready to run that race, and then we start running and we doing it real fast, and then all of a sudden we start slowing down. Our breath gets taken away, distractions come, and then
Yeah.
we're stuck. We stand still and can't move any forward, and everybody else is running, passing us.
Well, you're exactly right. And what happens inside of that is this is that one of the things that happen with distractions is sometimes the inability to prioritize things, to stay
Mm.
focused on things. Life will happen. Believe me, things will not necessarily line up with our schedules. But it's so important in order to avoid a distraction is to be intentional in the way that we prioritize things. In other words, do I have to handle that situation now? We have to be able to delineate between what is urgent versus what is an emergency.
Absolutely, Dr. J. And one of the things we must absolutely do is align ourselves with those goals that we have in mind. You got to prepare. You got to set standards, just like you're on a job and you'll go through job training, right?
Right.
And sometimes they give you a book, sometimes there's a video that you have to look so that you can set your goals of what you want to do for that corporation. Likewise, with our personal lives, we have to set a goal and make benchmarks so that at this particular time, this is where we want to be, and be able to press forward through that. But one of the things we do, like I said, is we get distracted. So we have to be mindful of the company that we keep, because a lot of times individuals will derail us from our vision, our plan. We'll get so caught up in somebody else's issues, somebody else's plan, gossip,
Yeah.
and then we get so overwhelmed and consumed with that till we get distracted out off of the plan ahead.
You're exactly right. And we have to make sure that we don't get consumed. And one of the best ways to do so is that we have to be intentional and deliberate, and setting goals and really not only just setting goals, but be deliberate about them, define them. And sometimes we need to break our goals down into smaller goals so that they're more achievable, that they're more manageable. And when we can do that, then we don't become overwhelmed and so quickly to give up when things do start seeming like they're coming in at us at the same time. And then I think the most important thing, at least one of the most important things, is that we have to begin to establish, if you would, boundaries and time blocks. Because at the end of the day, we have to know what we're after, what we're seeking after. I often say that when we come into the new year, we can't treat it like it's a finish line. So
Hmm.
many people treated it like it's a finish. Oh God, I made it in 2025. Praise God. Well, you sound like to me that you just crossed the line and ready to be crowned. No, you are just beginning. So in order for us to really do this is that once we've crossed that and we come into this new beginning, now we have to really be deliberate about the goals that we're setting, what we're doing. We have to manage our time. We have to once again break them down to smaller goals. Then we have to also establish some boundaries and put some time blocks. In other words, sometimes we have to have time blocks. This is what I'm going to get this done about this time. Well, I'm going to get this done about that time. And when we begin to do that, organization will eventually bring us to a place of decluttering, both
Hmm.
physical and mentally decluttering. Many times, it's not a matter of your ability to do things. It is the matter that you are so clogged and so cluttered with physical things, with things everywhere, and all these mental and physical and and even digital clutter that we have, we need to rid ourselves of so that we can see clearly. And don't be so easily distracted. Keep in mind, you do have a goal.
Absolutely. And you have to, be intentional, as you said.
Mhm.
Decide what it is that you want. What does that look like for you? What does that mean for your family? What does that mean for your friends? Every year I shed some fat. And
Yeah,
when I say shed some fat, I mean I shed some people, because we have those extra
absolutely.
bodies that hold on to us. So we need
Yeah.
to pull back that fat and say, okay, is this person serving me? And is this person adding to that goal that I want to obtain? And a lot of times, we always attach ourselves to people and for distractions, because sometimes the life that we're trying to live, it gets so overwhelming, and
Mhm.
we want a break, we want to time out mentally, and sometimes
Exactly.
those individuals that are distractions keep us distracted, and we never get back into position to get on that road of that place called there. And so a lot of times we're in limbo because of the fact that we see other people thriving and surviving and making it, and we wonder what's up with us. There are people that have obtained their goals, and we need to believe that our dreams and goals are attainable too. We spend so much time looking at other people who've made it,
Right.
and then we get distracted, and we forget that those things that we desire are attainable as well.
You're exactly right. And here's the thing about it. Sometimes you call it stargazing. People get caught up with
Mhm.
people, whether it's celebrities or people, and they get caught up with watching them because they seem to be successful. What they fail to ever think about is, how did they get there? For one thing, I promise you, one of the ways they got there is that they had to limit the access that people had to them, even if it was us. That's why sometimes you may see people disappear. And that's part of avoiding distraction. Sometimes we have to divorce ourselves even from social media. We have to divorce ourselves from things that is occupying our time, because we need to be able to remain focused. We need to be able to remain fervent and faithful to the cause. And one of the things that is so important, that when we declutter and when we begin to prioritize ourselves, let me say that again. We have to prioritize ourselves. We have to practice mindfulness. Yes, be mindful of ourselves. And for once in our life, learn to be selfless, not necessarily selfish, but selfless. And so many people have to also begin to mature in the area of this. Sometimes people have such a need to be needed and feel like they're needed and wanted, that they will find themselves gravitating, and they distract them their own self because they're looking to try to put out somebody else's fire. They're looking there to try to make somebody else's life better. They're trying to do those things. Nothing wrong with that. But in the words of the great stewardess that's on the airplane, said, listen, hey, in case of emergency, that you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help somebody else. No need of drowning, even in this new year, because you're so preoccupied with other people. You've got to think about yourself, because a healthy you being in the right position becomes useful to others. But if you're not healthy, if you're broken down, if you're distracted, then we don't get the best of who you are.
It comes to, like I said, elevating your thinking, elevating and knowing within your knowing that what you have is worth it and viable to the community. It is viable to the world. So you have to elevate your thinking, and also reach out and ask for help.
Right.
A lot of times we don't want to ask for help because, well, I'm going to do it by myself. This person did this and this person did that. But a lot of times you need a partner. You need somebody
We do.
not only to help you talk it through or give you business sound advice, but then also you need someone that's going to be your cheerleader, your accountability partner, to say, okay, didn't you tell me you were going to do this? And, why haven't you done it yet? But be careful. Be careful in your dreams and visions you share with individuals, because sometimes there's people that you attach yourself to, that you share what you're going to do, and they steal and snatch that right from under you and go ahead and do it. Because why? You've been distracted by other things, so they figure, okay, this was a good idea she talked about or he talked about, and they're not doing anything, so I'll just go ahead and do what they were set out to do, because I have the means and I have the capabilities, I have the connections to do it. But if you stay focused and don't get distracted and elevate your thinking, you will arrive at that place that you need to be to walk into your purpose.
You know, you hit it right on the head, Dr. Val, because one of the things that is so important is this, is that sometimes our biggest enemy is ourselves. Because what happens when we generally get distracted is because of the fact we either have not established a routine or we need to break a routine. And so here's the thing about it. One of the things about when we enter into a new chapter, whether it's a new year or whatever, we have to be not only deliberate and intentional, but we have to set these healthy boundaries. Like, for instance, I said earlier, like even for our social media, we have to limit our time on social media and entertainment. And so one of the things I'm discovering, because I'm putting this in practice now, is that perhaps we need to schedule specific times to check our social media. Schedule here to a specific time. I'm going to check my social media, whether the first thing in the morning or the last thing I do before I get ready for bed, rather than finding ourselves constantly scrolling, because we know that the scrolling is what becomes addictive.
Absolutely.
We get to scrolling, then we see the next reel, the next reel, the next reel, and before you know it, a whole hour has passed and we've used time. We wasted time. And then sometimes we need to use stuff like website blockers and stuff to make sure that certain apps are restricted. The other thing we need to do is turn off our notification so that our notification button is not going off all times of day and night, telling us every little thing that is happening. Because once again, your goal is to remain focused. And one of the things that I say, even from a biblical standpoint, there is something about when you are moving and you're making progress towards your goal, towards your mandate, towards your assignment, there's a peace of mind that comes with it. And that's the scripture says, I will keep them in perfect peace, those whose mind that are what? Stayed on me. Meaning what? Focus on me. Focus. Words I focus. And that focus is so important. And speaking of focus, that's another thing. A lot of time when we drive, and especially I know those that have iPhone, there's a whole thing that's called what? Focus. You can literally have it set that when I'm driving, I'm not getting notification. It automatically lets people know I'm driving. You can also set it on do not disturb to a certain point, a time of day or night. So there are many ways and many things that we can do to put ourselves in a position that we're not so easily distracted. And understand this, that get to the place of being, if you would, happy with yourself, being all right with yourself, the fact that you have decluttered, that everybody don't have access to you. That doesn't mean that you're acting funny. That means that is the greatest part of your own self-care. Everybody should not have access to you. No, not at all. Last I read, there's only one omniscient one, right? And we're not it. We're not the one that's all knowing and all powerful and all everywhere. So we don't need to be omnipresent. So we have to understand that when we begin to shed the fat, if you would, and when we begin to cut back, we cut back in order to grow. Think about it. We are given this parable there in John 15 that talks about the true vine and the husbandman, and he talks about every branch that bears fruit. What he does, he does what? He begins to heal it once again, because he knows that when he heals and cut back, it brings forth more. It grows. So if we're going to grow into what we need to grow into in this new year, that means that there's certain things we are going to have to cut back on. Cut back on our time of watching television. Cut back on our time of things. Rearrange some things in our lives, because we are serious in this year. Develop and maintain healthy routines. That's the part. Let me develop and maintain healthy routines.
Yeah, one of the things that we fail to do is manage our time and healthy routines. We
Right.
get so caught up, like you said, on the phone, looking at social media. Now, don't turn off social media when it comes to hot topics from the soul.
That's right. You
We
need to
want you to
prioritize
stay engaged to that, and we want you to subscribe so that way you won't be surfing and searching. It will pop up, and then you know to click the button and watch us because we'll be on because you'll have a notification.
Right.
That's the importance of subscribing. Now, one of the other things, Dr. J, is you'll run across people that want you to participate in everything they're doing, everything they're saying, whatever they got going on. They want you to like and follow and all this. But then when you ask them to do it, it's a hard thing. So, networking is also a key to getting to your next level of whatever that is, that place of there or of connection. And one of the things I've learned along the way in doing business is all you can do is all you can do. Man's extremity is always God's opportunity for a miracle. And what I mean by that is you can do your local network, but God will send somebody in your space that can make everything okay. What do I mean by that, Dr. Val? We're all one person away from a breakthrough. One
Absolutely.
person, one person can change the dynamics and the trajectory of your life where you will be able to thrust forward. But you won't be able to do that and make that divine connection if you're sitting there doing nothing. You have to activate those gifts and talents within you. You have to read, you have to study, you have to network, and you have to believe that it is possible. And you have to believe in that product that you have. A lot of people aren't sure about the product they have. They just know they have something and they're hoping that it makes it. They're hoping that it catches on. But you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to believe that you have something of substance that the world needs, because guess what? When you're in line with that assignment that God has for your life, then the world will beg for what you have. What you have, they will be reaching out and say, Dr. J, I know you got this thing. How can I get that? How can I get a hold of it? That's because that's that divine connection. And that's because you're walking in purpose. And those doors will open for you because why? You on purpose, you on assignment.
You said something, so many things that are so powerful there. And that's taking that time to recognize what you have and who you are. One of the things I've discovered, and this is one of the reasons why the enemy will continuously try to bring distractions our way. And I want everyone that's listening to pay attention to this. Sometimes you have an unction in your unction. You know that there's something inside of you, whether you know there's a purpose, there's an assignment that you're to do, or you know that, wow, there's something that is balling inside of you. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a vision. Maybe God have just planted something there. But our problem is that we get distracted oftentimes because we don't take the time to perfect that which he's given us. So before we get so distracted with other things, be that person that's willing to step away long enough to hone, that's an old word, hone that gift, to hone that gift, to work on that gift, to perfect that gift, to become better at that gift. Because when we do those things, then we become better. We become better. Just as simple as this. Here's one of the things here. When we make up our mind, this year here, I am going to intentionally be better. Healthcare is a priority. What did I say? Healthcare is a priority. What did I say? Healthcare is a priority. That means that I can't wait on someone else to do it. I have to start doing it myself. Whether it start with me getting more sleep, me eating better, me doing the things I need to, I can. And for those that say that you can't, let me show you why I know that you can. It's interesting. If the doctor orders you to go get testing, and they say, well, you got to have this test and you need to fast. You need to fast before you go take this test. It's interesting how we learn to adapt to that fasting, because we know that in order for us to get the result and find out what we need to fast. Well, put in our mind, there's a goal that I'm trying to get to, and I'm going to fast. Fasting is not always just fasting from food and water. Sometimes we have to fast from things, fast from television, fast from news, fast from all kind of distraction, fast from it so that your mind can become more concentrated toward what you're doing. And when we do those things, that we'll find strength. I don't know about you, but here's the thing about it. When you're making progress, it becomes more than an emotion. It becomes more than just a feeling, because there's nothing like a well-made up mind. A well made up mind will cause us to move beyond every distraction that comes our way because we know that we still have a goal in mind. I am still getting there. So, in other words, we have concluded that just reaching January 1, 2025, that wasn't nothing to get a prize. That's what you're grateful for. Watch this. That's what I'm grateful and thankful for. Now, my gift to 2025 is to give my best effort. My gift to 2025 is to do those things to align myself with the assignment that I have. And if I do that, everything around me will be blessed because the better me produces better things around me. The better me produces a better environment. So if you have no other reason to want to be better and to avoid distractions, understand this, that the better you casts a greater light.
You know, people also need to realize that things happen in seasons. You know,
Absolutely.
I was born in South Carolina, raised in New York, and now I'm settled in Florida. And I remember in the summertime and in the wintertime, they would plant different crops because they matured at different times.
Right.
And there were times when they would go and till to the ground, and then the production of labor would come forth. And that's how it is, likewise, in the natural when we're reaching for a goal in our life and wanting to get to the next level. It's seasons.
Right.
Everything is not going to be everything all year round.
Mhm.
You know, even with corporations, there's seasons when productivity is high, there's some when they're mediocre, and there's some when they're low. And
Mhm.
sometimes in those low seasons, that determines whether a business is going to survive or not in those low seasons. So, what do? In those low seasons, they prepare, they occupy themselves with a strategy. They occupy themselves with a plan to get to that next level or what they need to do differently from last year and the year before so they won't go so far down in productivity in the company so that it will be able to sustain so that the employees and their families will be able to sustain seasons. Not all seasons are meant to kill us,
Right.
but sometimes seasons are to hibernate us so that we can be protected just like in a cocoon until we're able to burst forth and come out even better than before. It is a time for us to replenish our minds. Our minds. You know, as a man thinketh, so is he. What is it you're thinking about? Our wealth is based on our ability to think. So if we're not thinking productive thoughts about how to get to that next level, then we won't get to that next level because we're still stuck in this cocoon waiting for someone to shed the shells around us when we need to be thinking of a plan. Just because things are slow and doesn't seem like it's moving, doesn't seem like nothing has happened, there is a plan. There is a structure that's being erupted even out of the dust that we see before us. We will emerge as phoenixes because why? The preparations, the battle we went through, we shall soar as eagles because we didn't give up in the fight. We kept breathing, we kept thinking, we kept moving so that when that time comes and when that season comes, the crops will come forth. Our seeds of planting and giving, and we will reap those benefits of those seeds and that work that we put in place. A lot of people don't like working, Dr. J. They want to connect with people that will give them something
Mhm.
instead of putting in the work. Every athlete that has achieved greatness, they worked, they was in the gym, they were running, they had a diet. We got to put in the work. It just didn't happen. Some people are just naturally gifted. Some people have been handed down wealth so they don't have to work as hard or think as hard, but it's still work. You got to put in the work. You got to invest in you.
You hit it on the head because once again, that whole analogy about seasons is so important because there is what, in Ecclesiastes 3, it says to all things, to everything, there's a season, a time to everything under the sun. So what we understand is this, even inside of time, you may be in your preparatory season. But in your preparatory season, you need to be giving your best effort because you are preparing. The word preparatory, root word is preparing for your season. The thing about it is this. Oftentimes, people, they fail to prepare for their season, and they're just left on hoping that things will get better. But when we prepare, your analogy is exactly right. When we prepare, it's interesting. Sports is such a great analogy because the fact we see it. We're at the end of almost the end of football season right now. The end of it. We're going to have a Super Bowl here in about 3 weeks, and we're coming to the end of the season. Now, what will happen is then when that's over, they call that is the off season. What do you mean the off season? That simply means that they're not playing right then. But in that off season, it's where preparation starts for what? The next season. They step back, they reflect over what they have just dealt with, and they begin to make adjustments. I wonder how many people that have come into 2025 that was just satisfied with just making it in. It's not enough to just make it in. Understand this. Making it in is something to be grateful for and thankful for. I heard someone say that listen, God's gift to you, God gives us a gift. And what we do with that gift is God's gift to God. And so what we have to do, even in this time here, is what do we do in this time, in this season? We prepare our heart, our mind. Some people right now are still struggling with the residual of 2024 all over them, although we're on the 14th day of January. The residual of 2024, the way you thought, you're still lamenting over the things that happened to you. There are things that you did not let go. There are people that you still did not let go. There are things that you're trying to hold on to that you need to let go, because I promise you that there's a new season that is trying to emerge inside of your life, but you got to be willing to put in the work. As you said, you got to be willing. Sometimes putting in the work is working hard just to let go. I'm going to release this. I'm going to release this, because understand this. I now have to do the work. I have to understand the seed process. I understand that even if I'm starting what? All over again. And that's exactly what happened. Every year we are starting all over again. You talk about growing up and being born in South Carolina, born and raised in Alabama, Selma to be exact. And I often tell my kids how much I regret not really listening to my dad because he had a green thumb. I remember him going out there in that garden at that certain time, and he's digging up and he's tilling the ground, and then he would lay the seed and put the seeds in. I would see him covered up and those things. I would hate going behind him because the fact, like most people, I wanted to see the harvest right away. But what happened in that time, in that season, between the time he tilled the ground and planted the seed, then the nurturing began to happen. And in its due time, guess what? The seed came forth. And that's what we need to understand. I understand the scripture says this. It says to us, let us not be weary in well-doing, but we shall reap in due season if we faint not. Let's stop for one moment. We have to ask ourselves the question, are we doing well? Are we procrastinating our time away? Are we not minding our time inside of that? The thing about it is this, it is forming those healthy habits, because we form habits, then habits form us. And the only way that this can happen is that we have to learn this thing called, help me, Lord, discipline. Discipline. Jim Rohn said it best. He said, in this life, we all will experience one or two constant pains. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is that the pain of discipline weighs ounces compared to the pain of regret weighs tons. How do we avoid the pain of regret? We deal with the hard part right now. We learn to discipline our flesh. We learn to discipline our mind. We learn to discipline those voices, those you can make it voices. We learn to discipline ourselves. We turn off the tape recorder in our ears. That's nothing but the enemy. The tape recorder that said, well, you failed at this last year. The tape recorder said, you remember that didn't work last time. The tape recorder that continue to try to remind us of our failure. That tries Who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. So the real word is work that thing, work that power within you. Let's
That's
avoid
right, Dr.
distractions
J.
and be intentional.
That's right, Dr. J. And we're so happy to have people tuning in live and writing in the chat. Diana, Dennis, Noel, uh,
Sashay,
Tasha. We have, so many people writing in
Lucia,
chat. We ask that
yes,
you forward the show if it's been a
Dennis,
blessing.
yes,
Share it on your walls and subscribe. As I said, subscribe. It costs you nothing to subscribe. It's just a matter of just clicking a button. So we appreciate you joining in and tuning in to us each week and also replaying the shows. And we want to encourage you that, regardless of what it is you are going through at this particular minute in your life, that manifestation of those works, the labor, the groundwork that you have provided, that you have laid, it's coming forth. Don't give up hope. Keep pressing forward because things work and flow in seasons. Yes, they do. So seasons are going to change every day. They will change. So we appreciate you, as I said, tuning in to Hot Topics of to the Soul. And until next week, good night. Hot topics from the soul. Yeah. Hot topics from the soul. Yeah. Hot topics from the soul.